was a process because we had to get into a conference room and get all the things working.
That's right. So let us know, Texas, when you are ready for us to proceed.
I kind of feel like the Apollo 11, you know, Texas.
Are you here?
Did you see that documentary?
I saw the movie.
I did too, yeah.
It was fantastic.
Oh, they're here, but they have to call in.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, we should have chat up.
Here.
We didn't have chat up.
Here we go. Okay, we'll give you a minute just to call in, please, because we need to get going to honor everybody's time here.
So I will. They're asking what the number is, so let me find it and I can give it to them.
Okay, thanks, Juma. Sorry, Chris. We are constantly learn about getting more patience in our lives every day.
It's all good.
Okay.
This is a growing experience.
Character building.
Yeah.
So Texas team, I just sent it via chat.
So what's your son raising the money for, Yvonne?
We do this thing called Destination Imagination, but it runs money. And so he's trying to help out teams that are from low-income schools.
Great.
So he's trying to raise money and materials so he can give it to them so they can compete.
That's great.
Isn't that what our friend Chris Beisel?
Yeah,
Oh, we know Chris. So we know Chris.
Yeah.
Chris knows my son.
Yeah.
She
hired us a long time when she was with the MS Society.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
she went.
Hi, Norman.
Chanel.
Chanel is from APHL.
And what does that stand for?
The Association of Public Health Laboratories. So she is our continuous quality improvement guru, basically.
We need continuous improvement. We need a guru. Hi, Chanel.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're here. Can you hear us in Texas?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can.
can.
Yes, we can.
That's it. Great.
All right. And who all is there today? Just tell me that first.
It's Crystal and Dwayne.
Crystal and Dwayne.
Okay.
Okay. Well, then Yvonne, do you want to say wonderful words of welcome?
Sure, unless Sarah wants to. Sarah, do you want to welcome her?
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm sorry I wasn't with you last week, but welcome to the second session of the top-notch smartphone videos. We will be recording each of these sessions, and I will follow up in an email with the link to the recording as well as any other of the supplemental material. Just a reminder that I believe your first assignment is due at the next session, and if you could send a Vimeo link to Steve or Chris before that session, they can make sure that is all geared up for that review. Please make sure to mute yourselves. If you're on your computer, you can do that by clicking on the microphone button, and if you're on your phone, to mute yourself or unmute yourself is *66. And that is all I have, and I will give it to Steve and Chris to take it away.
Okay.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. I think everybody was here last week, so you know I'm Chris. He's Steve. He's the creative. He's the
She's
actor.
the smart one.
She's the actor, creator, camera operator, Final Cut editor. I'm the kind of the reporter, producer, interviewer, rough cut person. Between us, we've got kind of the just the facts kind of person. That's me, and all the creative. That's him.
Well, and Chris is also really great at taking all these big ideas and then sort of distilling them down into a very concise, very clear thing, which is a very powerful thing for any video, is being able to take a big idea and bring it down to the...
Which is exactly what we're going to be talking about you doing today.
Well, it's amazing how that works out.
I know, yeah, I love how those go together.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our very first assignment, and that is we're going to have you do a single person video. Now that just means a single person on camera. it still is the entire team that's working on the video.
And it could be that there's two people who do a piece of it, but we're just really one person on camera. We're making a kind of a simple, straightforward 1-minute video.
So of course, the first thing you have to do, and we'll talk about some ways to come up with ideas, is decide on the topic of your first video, and then write it, shoot it, edit it.
That's easy.
Yeah, that makes that sound. Those short sentences make things sound really easy. And then upload it, as Sarah was just talking about it, to share with the other teams, because we learn so much from each other's videos and each other's processes.
So let's just let's talk about some things that they might actually do. What sort of topics they might consider.
How you can figure out what you want to do. Maybe you have already thought of one, but indulge us. What's your most frequently asked question? That doing a video doesn't guarantee you'll never have to answer the question again, but it will take some of the load off. What is a major misconception about your program that you wish people understood more clearly? And there's also the idea of who really needs to understand your program but doesn't. Maybe they just don't have a thorough understanding of it. Or what do you wish more people knew about newborn screening? Those are things that might help you figure out what you want to do for your very first project. So
go ahead, Chris.
Okay, well, we want to check in with you guys and find out. We want to make sure your gear has arrived, and if you've had a chance to play with it yet, and if you've thought about a topic yet for your first video. So, you know what, Chris in Oregon, I'm going to ask you first, since you were the first on this morning. Do you have your stuff? What have you thought about a topic? Just kind of a general check-in.
So we have most of the stuff. The one that's giving us problems is the filmic, because we have to have approval to buy it, to put it on our device, and I haven't heard back on that one yet. But I have everything else.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for Sarah's return to discuss our video.
Oh, she's on vacation, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay. All right. But have you tossed around any ideas, or are there some floating around in your head now?
We have a couple of questions that we could probably do something on, no problem.
Okay. All right. And the stuff with the Filmic Pro, is this going to be, since this first assignment is, you've got a couple of weeks.
It's really important.
What do you think in terms of whether maybe you could shoot it on a personal phone and come up with the $15 to have Filmic the first time, or just in case?
I'll figure something out.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Chris, the Oregon contingent. And Dwayne or Crystal, let's hear from you about where you are in the process with the gear and an idea. You are, I don't know, you must be muted somewhere or other.
So it looks like they might have actually dropped off when they went to unmute because their phone kind of stopped.
Heck.
So they probably have my skill set with unmuting, and they might be back.
Okay. All right. Then we'll talk to them when we get back. I hate to do an awful lot of stuff until.
Well, Chanel's on the call, and she's in a different. So Chanel, I don't know if you're thinking that you'll be doing a video, or where APHL's. Oh, it looks like Texas is back.
Okay. Well, let's continue with the Chanel question. Are you thinking you're going to do something, Chanel, if you unmute yourself?
So Chanel, we can't hear you if you're talking. Nope.
Okay. All right. Shall we?
Yeah, maybe go to Texas.
We'll switch gears. Hey, Texas, we're glad that you're back. What's your check-in on your gear and your ideas?
First off, I apologize. The mute button's too close to the speaker button.
Gotcha.
That was my guess. That was totally my guess.
So we've kind of been put on a halt on all of our items, equipment and apps, but we would like to continue attending just to get the information, if that's still okay with all of you.
It's sure, it's okay with us.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea when you might be able to get over this hump?
No.
Okay.
Well,
It goes A lot higher than us.
Oh, okay.
I would really suggest that somebody just bites the bullet and buys Filmic Pro just to experience it, because
On their own phone, you mean?
yeah,
on your own phone.
on your own phone,
Because it's $15.
and you're really going to get so much more out of this if you actually have a chance to experience what we're talking about. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of kind of dry explanation that won't have any context.
At least you could get the experience of shooting that way.
We hope to use it personally, and then maybe once we get approval to use it for work, then we already have the experience to share with other people as they come on.
Right.
Okay.
So sorry, is someone in your team going to get it for their personal phone?
Yes,
Okay.
Dwayne is working on it, and then we just found out like right before we went on with y'all that we have to stop for work. So I'll be adding it to my phone also.
Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Go ahead, Dwayne.
Dwayne, did you have a question?
Oh no, that was me. We're going to be adding it for personal experience, and hopefully we can become film professionals with our kids and families.
Yeah, well, there's actually two apps, and one is Filmic Pro, which is about $15, but then there's the editing, which is KineMaster, which has a free download, and if it works well, then you can get the full package for I'm not sure, but that I would suggest you get those two things to be able to follow along with us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're going to talk about getting ready on both sides of the camera. We are going to talk about really I suppose most people would say the fun stuff first, which is from behind the camera and shooting. So Steve's going to, and I are going to talk about that. Now, one of the first things that we want to talk about is, where are you going to show the video? We didn't used to ask this question. We just used to ask the question, and we would shoot everything horizontal, landscape,
because it would be
wide.
shown on somebody's TV or projected on a PowerPoint. So we'd always shoot this way.
The wide way.
Yeah.
Now the world is a little bit different. If you are Facebook or Instagram bound, and maybe almost only Facebook or Instagram bound, then you would shoot this way. And that's called 9:16. It's the aspect ratio.
You can also hear it's called portrait and landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the reason is that in Facebook, which we have a lot more experience with than with Instagram, it's logical. It makes more sense. When you have a tall video that shows up in the Facebook feed, it takes up more real estate in that feed and is therefore more noticeable, because a horizontal one is just a much shorter one. So it's the logical way to get more attention is to shoot it tall.
As you all know, and you've experienced it yourself, that you're very easy in a feed of things going by. You only click on certain things that entice you, and usually a larger image will. And we'll talk about this later, but if you can have some sort of attention-grabbing statement at the very beginning, whether it's a word or two or something, the better your chance of somebody actually clicking on it to actually hear what you're having to say. There's a real psychology about making the most of having your videos on Facebook.
Okay, so let's just talk about the fact. Okay, we just keep flying through our PowerPoints way faster. Okay, than we do. So we're going to get it together for the shoot. Okay,
now this is a video that I made that'll tell you a little bit more about getting all your stuff together for shooting this one-man video. And
you've written some sort of a script at this point. We'll talk more about scripting later. You've chosen a location and you have your gear. And so this video is going to tell you a little bit about how to set things up.
Okay, let me find it here. Here we go. And Sarah or Yvonne, yell at me if you're not getting the audio. It looks like everything's going to work, but you never know. Here we go. So, top-notch videos start with a hyper-awareness of what not to do. Many phone videos are ruined by the same mistakes. They shoot in a noisy environment and they become unlistenable. You shoot in bad lighting and the subject is either too close or too far away. And finally, either you or your subject are wearing something that's uncomplimentary or distracting. But our top-notch approach can eliminate many common problems by simply increasing your awareness. Consider first your location, where you're going to shoot. Now, you may be thinking about shooting your video in an office or someplace at your work. But think first, does this location help me tell my story? Or is it just another nondescript background that's simply convenient? It's always best when convenience and visual interest coincide. Take our friend Dia, for instance. She's looking to create a video for her stained glass business. Her first thought was to shoot her video at the table where she does much of her work. That's certainly convenient, but there are a couple of problems with this location. First, strong lighting from outside is good to help you design, but it actually presents a real problem for the camera, not to mention the noise from outside. Her second choice seems like a much better one. Her work desk in their basement is definitely interesting, and that window there gives her some nice natural light. Imagine where you might shoot. Now, in a location where there are no windows, take some time to scout your location within that room to get your top-notch awareness going. Now, notice how the overhead lighting falls. In some places in that room, it's better than others. Remember, we're always keeping in mind that we want where we shoot to say something about who we are. Now, if your best location has windows, consider how you might make them work for you rather than against you. Natural light through a nearby window is a great start, but a problem sometimes if you wear glasses. But notice how moving the camera just a little bit makes these reflections go away. Now, Dia has set up a tripod where she has visualized the best shot for her video. Avoid an angle that looks up at you or down at you. Eye level is the most flattering. Do your best to level the tripod and then clip in your camera. Next, set up your microphone. Our recommended production package has a nice lavalier mic and an extension wire. This end goes into the earphone plug on your phone. Your phone may require some kind of an adapter, and you'll end up with something that looks like this. You can try to hide your mic by clipping it inside your shirt, like this. Figure out 8 to 12 inches from your mouth. You might even try to hide it in a neck scarf, like this, or simply clip it neatly onto your top. I think it's perfectly acceptable to have a mic showing. A messy cable, however, is not so acceptable. Now, you'll need to make several test recordings to make sure your framing looks good, your focus and exposure are correct, and the audio is clear. As you can see, there are always adjustments to lock your exposure and focus with Filmic Pro. And then the fun begins. Be patient with yourself. This is sometimes a very frustrating process, but it really helps if you know what you're going to say and that you've rehearsed it beforehand, way before the camera rolls.
Thanks for shopping.
Yes.
Yeah, there is always a sense of, yeah, I finally got it all done. So
That's right.
be patient with yourself.
Now, we know there was a lot of stuff just in that little video, so we're going to go over some items and add a couple of items to how you can set up the best way for your video. One is the whole location situation. You want to have a room that actually has room. Closet is not a good video make. You want to have, for example, you don't want to have somebody set up right against the wall. It's not good for focus. It's just not a good look. So you want to have a decent amount of room to move around.
Also, consider the noise when you're in a location you're thinking about shooting at. Is there a lot of noise naturally going on right behind you? Sometimes if you choose to shoot outside, just take a second before you push the button to think about how much car noise there is, especially if you're unable to have one of the lavalier mics that we talked about. And you guys who are having trouble getting all of your equipment, the lavalier mic is a really great way to be able to have the sound better. But if you don't have it, just move the camera closer. We just had a job this weekend where Chris was shooting a lot of interviews in a very noisy environment, but she was able to come up like within 2 or 3 feet of somebody and be able to get good audio with that. It's amazing what you can get from those phones. Just know that anytime the further away you are from the subject with your phone, the more bouncy or the less quality of the sound will be.
So yeah, you can overcome a lot with a leveler, but you don't have to have it as you're close. Then you want a room that kind of helps tell the story. You know that video where you're in the break room eating? I'm just not sure that that's a good visual for me to remember it in the middle of the night.
It was really good. It was over at Yvonne's office. They have good things there.
They do. So you want to have something helps tell the story. I will say, and I can't remember if we said this last time, but my least favorite place to shoot is a conference room, even though that's a room with room, because they're usually so dang boring visually. So maybe it is an office, or if you could shoot in a lab, or that would be certainly an interesting location. But you go ahead.
And if you do have to have a conference room, most conference rooms nowadays will have a nice big TV there. If you have to shoot there, try to get the logo of whoever you're talking on that monitor behind them. It really helps dress up a kind of a plain sort of conference room that you have to do. Yes.
Or you can drag around plants like we did at Yvonne's office and put them behind to kind of give it a little bit of warmth. Just make sure the plant does not look like it's coming out of the top of the head.
Yeah, that's bad.
I don't
so, okay, let's talk a little bit about setting up. Now, the big thing that you wanted to basically make sure is that when you look at your phone, if the image looks good, it's many times there's such a kind of a panic of getting the camera set up, and you're just happy that the thing's on. But take a second to critically look at it and say, is this the best picture that I can get? Is there something that I can do to improve it? Make sure that there's no shadows, no reflection in glasses. And with Filmic Pro, you'll be able to see that you can actually set the exposure to the best exposure that you can get your focus correct.
You know what? Can I interrupt?
Sure.
Let's talk about the circle and the square on Filmic Pro just another time, because we've talked about it once, but just to help it sink in a little bit.
So Filmic Pro, and the reason I'm recommending this app is because your phone does a great job of just shooting almost anything, but it is susceptible. It basically wants to average everything into in the frame into a gradation between brights and darknesses. But if you have a lot of brightness in the picture and your subject is not that bright, it shuts down the exposure so that your subject's face becomes dark. But the beauty thing about Filmic Pro is that there's a circle in there, and that little circle is really your exposure. If you tap on that and move it around the picture, you'll notice that sometimes if it's focused on a bright part of the picture, it'll shut things down. If it goes into a darker part of the picture, the exposure will open up. So just spend a second moving that thing around to make sure that your subject has the best exposure, not too bright and not too dark. Remember that overexposure is much worse than underexposure. Overexposure, the information is completely gone. It doesn't record it. Underexposed just a little bit, you should be able to bring it up with some of the apps.
So when you find the perfect exposure, then you tap on the circle, it turns red, and it locks it.
Right.
So that if then the picture changes, it gets brighter or darker, your exposure is still locked.
And the same thing works with, there's a little triangle in there. So you just tap that and move it to the person's face. And,
no, it's a square.
A square. And so you tap, she knows because she's been dealing with this. You get it to their face, tap it, and it turns red. That again locks the focus right on that person's face. So no matter what happens, that'll stay focused. Okay, and And Chris said it earlier, don't place them up against the wall. I always feel that looks kind of like they're in a mug shot on a lineup. So get them away from the wall a little bit. Pull them away from the background, at least 6 feet or so if you can. And here's something you'll hear us say again and again and again. Please try to make the location in which you're shooting help tell something about your story. You know, the person that you're talking to and filming, they're going to be giving you a lot of great information, but really the visual behind them, that's really an important part
It's
of
the
this
visual context.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so try to make it part of the story. I mean, kind of like, look at this shot of us.
It shows we're messy.
Yeah, our shabby little international headquarters of Denver Film and Digital, but it does tell you a little bit something about us.
Oh my gosh, what does it tell?
Don't even think about it. Okay.
So I think this slide that we have had up here for a long time talks about shooting at eye level.
Yeah, so always try to shoot the person at eye level. It's the most flattering view of a person's face.
The least flattering is shooting up, because then it focuses on the neck.
And shooting down is also like the picture that you see up there. That's also flattering. It's sort of diminutive, diminishes their importance in the frame. So either shooting up or shooting down. Like Chris said, it's the least flattering angle for a human face. And another thing to think about is trying not to keep your subject right square in the center. That used to be a little bit more acceptable when we were shooting remember when our TVs were more squarish. They weren't quite square, but they weren't as wide as they are today. So try not to keep them right straight in center. Just put them off to the side a little bit. And this is a really nice kind of framing to have them slightly off center. And this is what we would call a close-up. You can either move the camera in, or if you're able to on your camera to zoom in a little bit, this is a good size for a close-up. And this would be too close. And unless, of course, there are times we were just shooting a very emotional video, and there were times I wanted to be in and see that person's face, be able to see the emotion that's there. But generally, this is the best size for the kind of framing that you want to do. Now, here's the thing called headroom, and it's an unconscious thing that I know you are all aware of when you're looking at TV. This is a comfortable kind. This is not a very comfortable framing. It feels almost claustrophobic, as if the person's head is being chopped off by the top of the frame. And conversely, if your headroom is way down like this, it again feels uncomfortable. It's off balance. It's aesthetically not pleasing.
You know something's wrong, even though if you don't know. Well, now you will know. You'll watch all of this stuff on TV now.
So this is a good medium shot. So this is something that you might consider. You're sort of between this and the close-up. This is the kind of shots that you want to be getting. Now let's talk a little bit about the sound. Now, for those of you who don't have your microphones yet, just store this for future knowledge. But when you have the lavalier mic, the sound is so much clearer and more present because the voice is right near the microphone. But the problem is when you plug it in the phone, you can't really tell it's working, because if you unplug it and you're speaking, the phone is still registering the audio just like it normally would. You plug it in and you're hoping that it's coming through the microphone, you're talking, and the thing's still moving, but you don't know whether it's coming.
The thing that is moving, he's talking about, see at the bottom of that shot, under the time code, the zeros, that's a bar that'll move to show sound.
So the best way to make sure that your lavalier is working is just have somebody blow into the microphone, because you know that sound blowing through the microphone is actually what you need. All right, so here's the most important advice we can give anybody is make sure that you're rolling. And you may think, yeah, Steve, that's really brilliant, but I, with years and years of experience, Chris with years of experience, every now and then we'll think we got the greatest shot in the world, and you're thinking, man, I've nailed this one. They're going to give me the Emmy for this one, and then you realize for some reason, or you thought you hit it, and for some reason it just wasn't rolling. So always push that button and then look into the middle of that screen and make sure those zeros are rolling. That means that the button
will turn red once you hit it. We were at a thing recently where we were doing a high school they were teaching teachers how to teach economics in high school. Kids were doing exercises. It was fabulous. I got this wonderful exchange between kids. I was so proud of myself, and I hadn't been rolling. Your heart stops.
All right. So we've been talking a lot. We've been throwing a lot at you. Let's just open it up. I know we've thrown a lot at you, but I'm wondering if anybody has any burning questions that have been coming up and saying, I don't know what the hell they're talking about, but just, if you have any ideas, any questions, please, now's the time to just throw them at us. Anybody have anything?
So I have a question.
Yes, Yvonne.
So I think for a lab, it's maybe easier to find an environment that kind of helps tell your story. But I think for follow-up, it could be harder. Like, how do you think through? I remember the plan. So is it just it's warm and welcoming? Is it like what are we going for if we're not able to be in a place where the business actually happens?
Well, I think trying to break up a solid wall, just a big
Blank
beige
wall.
blank wall. When we shot your video, Yvonne, we put a plant back there, but we also had a blue wall and we had a white wall with a whiteboard back there. The thing is that you're trying to give some sort of visual interest to the picture.
Not that it's distracting, that it's not like a mugshot, like you said. So I prefer offices actually over conference rooms. If you can't be in a lab or something like that, I prefer that. And sometimes outdoors will work, but is your topic, does it have remotely anything to do? Maybe if it was about courier pickups, it would be justifiable, but I'm not sure, and I'm sure there are other examples, but you want it to not fight your story at the very least, if it can't promote your story. Does that help, Penny?
That does. And I have one more question actually for you, Chris. You were saying that when you shoot video to be on Facebook or to stand out, is that you have attention grabbing at first, like a word or two. I would love an example because I hear that, but I don't really know how to take that and turn it into something.
We can talk to you about that in editing, and we probably should add editing.
Yeah.
But when you're editing, you know how there's a text at the bottom that gives the person's name and credentials. That's called a lower third because it's in the lower third of the screen. Sometimes you use text to ask a question. In the same way, you could put text at the top of the screen during editing.
Here's an example. We just did a video for a guy who has a remodeling company, and he wanted to target specifically Facebook. So again, we turned our camera this way, and then when the video comes up, there's an interview with one of his clients in this part of the frame, but the top said kind of some summary of what she said. She said, "My house hadn't been remodeled since the 1980s." So that was written at the top. So it's that sort of hook that you're looking for, specifically in Facebook, because really you have about 10 seconds, if that, to have somebody interest them enough to be able to click on you to hear the audio.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And I don't know if others have questions, but I get mine now.
Text is unmuted. Dwayne or Crystal, do you have any questions?
No, not right now.
Okay, thanks. Cool. All right, so we have now talked about one side of the camera. Let's talk about the other side of the camera, which is preparing your 1-minute presentation. Now, I'm sure you guys have all given presentations, but 1 minute is a different animal. 1 minute is, well, there are some parts of your life where a minute seems to last forever, but it does not last forever if you're trying to make a couple of major points. So we want to talk about how you prepare 1 minute presentation, how you grab people's attention and make a couple of concise points, and then wrap it up with probably some kind of call to action. You will soon discover that maybe writing a 1 minute piece is harder than writing a 5-minute piece, because you have to be so intentional about the main points that you want to make, and you have to get rid of a lot of extra stuff that you would put in 5 minutes.
But if you, like anything else, if you take it into pieces, chunks, it really helps you organize it. What's the first thing, Chris?
Okay, so you would want to have an introduction that would probably last between 8 and 10 seconds, maybe. Something that's going to catch people's attention, like an eye-opening statistics about something.
That could be the graphic that we were just talking about, Yvonne. So if there was a really strong statement that you could put at the top that would grab people's attention, that might be a good intro.
Okay. Then you are going to have maybe 45 seconds out of this to make a couple of major points. And then, oh, wait, that was about intros. Wait, I'm sorry, I lost my head. An eye-opening statistic, a bold or provocative statement, or a provocative question are good ways to catch people's attention. Then you're going to, in the body, you're going to have a couple of main points that you're going to make. You can't make much more than that in 45 seconds and give them any heft at all. And you're going to give some evidence or some examples to help drive home these couple of main points that you want to make. And then you are going to conclude with, generally, you're going to conclude with some kind of a call to action. Sometimes you'll do a summary, but a minute, you don't really have to summarize in a minute because it's only been a minute. So a call to action. This when I was a speech teacher in college, this is the tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them.
So I know we keep saying a 1-minute video. Now, there's no hard and fast rules here. If your subject can take a 45-second video or a minute and a half or whatever within there, just know that you don't have to hold to that exactly. So, but Chris was right. It's basically going to break down to 10 seconds intro, 30-40 second body, and 10 seconds or so to wrap it up. All right, so let's talk about some useful visuals that you might bring into this. So again, remember, we're telling a visual story here, as well as something, people's words. So think about what visuals can you use. And now they can break it down into some still photos, and pictures are they do tell 1,000 words. So if you can have any photos from you that you can either shoot or that you have access to, even stock photos, and if you, I often will buy a stock photo of something, a powerful image that may only cost me $10-15, but that's, and also there's a great, the Creative Commons is a place where you can get free resources like this, historical photos. Actually, I would always start there. Just type in whatever your subject is and see what comes up. The second part is graphics.
And you can have charts that you probably already have worked up for other presentations that you may have made, or text. When we say CG, that's character generation. It just means the text that's going to appear on the screen, and we'll be talking about that in editing.
And finally, B-roll. You've heard us talk about that video that's rolling over, that actually shows you what the person is talking about. It's if you're talking about a lab, you would show shots of the lab. But sometimes, and I don't know how many times I've done it in my career, but a shot of somebody walking down a hallway, somebody sitting at their desk, somebody talking on their phone, looking at their computer. These are all important pieces of video that will help you tell your story. And more importantly, when you're editing, to be able to have graphics or visuals that help you cut over when you're making sort of surgical cuts in their testimony or their interview. You'll be able to cover those edits with something like somebody walking down the hall. We'll show you at some point during this course Yvonne's video of her walking down the hallway. That's an interesting shot, but more importantly, that was covering several edits that we had to make in order to really make her statements more concise and bring it down to a minute.
So what is the next slide? You know what? Before we go on, I'm wondering if we can give a couple of more examples about some of the points that we were making. Because it's on this page that I forgot I had.
Oh.
So that's why we're going to do this. Let's go back to the writing things, the eye-opening statistics and things like that. Okay, I'm just going to give you some examples, and examples are all often a good way to make a point. You'll use examples when you're putting yours together too. here's an eye-opening statistic. Every single year, more than 5,000 babies in this country are born with one of the conditions tested for in newborn screening. I could probably make that sentence shorter, but maybe people don't know 5,000 babies are born with these conditions every year. Maybe it's a bold or provocative statement. Here's an example. And we used this in a piece that we did recently on midwives, in which the person said, when one of the babies I delivered came back with a positive result in newborn screening, she was able to get the treatment she needed to save her life, and it changed how all the midwives in my practice viewed newborn screening. Ask a question is another way to start a video, but never a yes or no question, because you don't want to have the person viewing the video answer that question with a no, which automatically shuts them down to what follows. So it's more of a provocative question. What do you think is the #1 objection that midwives give to doing newborn screening? So they start thinking about it and they're intrigued and they listen to what is to follow. So that's a couple of examples of the way to start. And then wrapping things up, the call to action thing. Here are a couple of examples there. Might be, we hope you're willing to be part of a larger conversation about midwives and newborn screening at our next conference. So you can sign up on our website. Or this is literally a matter of life and death. We hope you'll sign our online petition asking the legislature for more money to have courier service on Saturdays. That kind of thing. A specific call to action is what we're talking about.
I'm glad you found this.
Yeah, this is a good page.
Because really what we're talking about here is when you're thinking about making your 1-minute video and later your other videos, this is the kind of footwork that you need to be putting in now, thinking how to do it. And really, Chris said it a few minutes ago about 1 or 2 main points. If you can make a video, really no matter what length, and the audience comes away with 2 solid things that you want them to understand, your video is a success. And that's really what we're shooting for here. But there's some things that we're going to tell you that'll help you ensure that you have a better chance of success. First of all, when you're writing this, when you're thinking about it, always start off with sort of the key statement or key concept right at the top. It's kind of like, remember when you were writing papers back in school, that you have the beginning of a paragraph. You just remember the topic sentence sort of starts it off. Let's say you're writing a piece about advocating for couriers on Saturday, and you really have, so really your main point is that timeliness is crucial, right? And so then you offer science-based information, that a baby can look perfectly normal, those sort of things. You describe, you fill that out with evidence-based window of time needing to get results to a family, and then give them a powerful example, like some of the stuff that Chris was talking about, some of the things we heard about in person, like a Thursday birth, a Friday screen, and that there was no pickup until Monday and no results until Tuesday, and the baby by then is already sick, or it could be even worse. Or conversely, you could offer a story about a baby who got timely results, who got the treatment to prevent a health problem.
So examples and stories, really, sometimes we lose sight of this, but at the very beginning we talked about storytelling. Everything you're doing, whether it's a minute or 10, is a story with a little beginning, middle, and end. And when they are personal stories, specific stories, they can have a lot of impact.
And I want to backtrack a little bit about talking about the visuals that we talked about a little bit. And first of all, talk about the nerves of the personal sort of anxiety of having to be on camera to be able to deliver this stuff. And I don't care who you are, it's everybody with tons of experience, even Chris and I, who have had a lot of experience with the camera, there is a certain amount of nerves and tenseness that goes about. It's natural, and it's one thing that you have to just sort of give yourself a break about. One thing that I always try to remember when I'm doing this is, even though my nerves and inside, I may be having I'm flipping out. I'm tense. I'm thinking, how am I stuttering again? You know, what's going on? But just try to remember back in the back of your head, you are the vessel to a bigger idea. It's not about you. And sometimes we just need to get out of our own way and be able to just speak from the heart and have patience with ourselves and let it happen.
So we're going to actually catch up with our slides now as we continue to talk about delivery news. One of the very best answers to nerves is presentation. And you're going to roll your eye and say, yeah, whatever. But it's absolutely true. You want to practice off camera until you are familiar with it. First of all, if you're going to write something word for word, you read the script out loud several times to make sure you haven't put any time bombs in your way of things that are really hard to pronounce or phrases that are hard to pronounce or get out. And likewise, if you're writing with bullet points, you want to practice so you can smoothly go from one section to another. And when you say it out loud, this is not reading silently, this is saying it out loud. It's a very different practice. And then when you're looking at the camera and you're about to do this, another little mind game is to think about someone being on the other side of that camera, not just the lens. Your roommate, your boyfriend, your whatever. You know, you think about an actual person and delivering it.
It's really obvious when you see people on camera who are who, when they're speaking, you can tell they're just trying to remember something. That's the impression you get as a viewer. But there's also, you'll notice that there's a big difference about somebody who has a sense that they're really speaking to you, that their consciousness, their intention is really going through that lens to you. That's an important place to start as a presenter.
Okay, you don't have to memorize everything. There are it's okay to have a cheat sheet, as we're saying here. Maybe it's an outline, maybe it's bullet points, maybe it's written large enough so that it can be down right below the camera phone.
Put it right there.
And you can glance down at it and glance back up and do the next sentence or the next section of your piece. I would suggest you really have the introductory thing in your head so you don't have to look away to any kind of cheat sheet for that. Except, you know, at the very beginning. But there's just nothing wrong with a cheat sheet. Since you're shooting with your phone, there are prompter apps, but it degrades what the phone can pick up to have it going on at the same time as your phone.
The problem is, I wouldn't suggest it. The problem you may find out, but there's actually a prompter going on here. And you're able to read that. But the problem is that it actually uses the camera on this side of your phone, and that is not as high quality as the one that's on the back. That's the one we're going to be shooting with.
Yeah, so that's why we're saying cheat sheet instead of trying to use a prompter.
And it could be bullet points, just something that helps you. And don't forget, practice with that. Yeah. Would you make it out? Practice with that cheat sheet.
Now, some of you are going to be able to do this. I'm taking your line here perfectly in one take or two takes, and hats off to you. But we have some other ideas for people who can't do it just in one take.
Our chunk method. We should
patent this.
Yeah. So we use it all the time. Anyway, so the chunk method is just don't try to take the whole thing at once. Just break it down into, like, sometimes it's as much as a sentence or two, or if you can, a paragraph at a time. But again, be patient with yourself. Try to do it all in as much as you can, using your bullet points, whatever.
Now, I would say, if maybe you've had this thought, if I do a bunch of different takes, then am I not going to have what are called jump cuts between the takes when I edit it? Because I'm looking like this when I finish one sentence, and when I start the next chunk, I'm like this, and it's very distracting to have a jump cut. But we have the answer for that.
We do. Well, there's a couple of answers. Many of your phones now shoot in what's known as 4K. And basically the idea about 4K, and I remember when I first saw it, I was saying, why do we really need 4K? Because HD, high definition, seems so perfect. Well, 4K is actually 4 times the resolution of a regular HD. And the advantage of that is for instance, if this is a 4K picture, that means that every quarter of this picture is actually at the size of an HD picture, a regular HD. And the beauty part of it is that you can go in and grab any portion of this 4K picture, and it doesn't degrade the image at all. It looks just
You
as
mean
good.
if you make it bigger?
If I were to take this lower quarter and blow it up so it showed the whole page, it doesn't degrade. Remember how we used to blow up images or JPEGs and they get all crinkly. But this, if you're shooting 4K, and the reason why this is important, that if you do shoot everything on 4K in a medium shot, you would be able to, and you want to do cuts, and you're worried about having jump cuts that you're cutting in between sentences, you can actually have your medium shot in your first cut. Your second cut can be you can just enlarge it to a close-up, and so there is no visual jarring. It's not a jarring experience when you're looking at it. So that's a way to use 4K as a way to kind of smooth this out. But the way that we used to do it before is simply move the camera. So if you shoot one chunk full frame and that you're shooting a
Like waist up or so?
waist up shot, and then you want to try to get the second shot, just move the camera closer so that
it's
you have
like
a close up.
Here.
So it's basically the same thing we were talking about with the 4K. You want to vary the size of the shot so it doesn't appear as a jump cut. And finally, the best tool that you have is to be able to, in editing, when you do have to cover those kind of jump cuts that we're talking about, always cover it with a graphic, a photo, or a video, which we call basically our B-roll.
Okay.
All right, post-production.
Oh my gosh! So you've shot this. You've scheduled probably an hour to do it. When you think, oh, I could do this in 20 minutes, but schedule an hour. So you've done your shooting. You've gotten good sound. You have all the pieces, however chunk method you've used. Now you're going to go into the magic of post-production. So what we're going to do is Steve has made a video that really takes you through how to use KineMaster. There's a lot in here.
There's a lot in here, and basically we're going to tell you what we're going to show you, and then we're going to show you, and then we're going to talk about it again. But what I want you to kind of get an idea of is the basic workflow of this process. We're shooting with our camera, with our phone, and we're actually going to be able to edit on our phone. And that's what I really want us to focus on. The reason, because it used to be that we'd have to have a high-powered editing system in order to edit, but it's come so far with these our great smartphones that we can get the whole thing done on our phone and faster in and out, and it's just a really a time saver. And especially when our short kind of videos, informational videos that we're talking about having you guys make, that's the kind of workflow that makes it less painful. It makes it so you're wanting to get more things out, and that's what we're trying to encourage, that we start getting a lot of videos out. We're using this tool to tell our story and to get what we want across to our people. So, and
the more you do, the faster it'll go. It won't always happen in, you won't be able to do a project in an hour, but you will get better and you will get faster about it.
Okay, let me just give you an overview.
Okay.
So you shoot your video on your smartphone. Then you'll need to be able, and that's in Filmic Pro. And so what you'll need to be able to do is take it out of Filmic Pro and put it into KineMaster. These are both apps on your phone, but you need to have both those things on there so that you can be in KineMaster, the editing software, and be able to pull it from Filmic Pro and bring it into KineMaster so that you can edit. Now, once you got it in there, we're talking about several passes. This is like you've got all your footage on your phone. Now you're going to look at it. This is another chunk method. And so basically the first pass through is that you're just going to look at your footage, and where they start talking, you back up a little bit and you're going to make an edit. You're going to make a cut. We're making chunks here. So the person starts talking and they're talking and talking. They stop talking, make another chunk. That's all we're doing, going through. We're just, and then there's blather here as we're thinking about our next question. Then you ask a question and they start talking again. Make another chunk. Just basically going through making quick edits in each one of those pieces.
You're putting a cut at the head and tail of every chunk of information.
Okay, so you've gone through the whole thing. You've just made these chunks. You're not trying to evaluate which is. You're getting familiar with the footage, but just basically making the chunks. Now the second pass through is you're just going to get rid of all the clunkers, whatever. And so we're going to go through and we're going to just take out the stuff that we know we'll never use. Second pass through, you're going to there's a little trash can icon in KineMaster. That's going to be your friend. You're going to just get rid of it. And one thing that you should know, when you throw things into the trash can, it doesn't destroy the video. We're using non-destructive editing here. So you're just basically going to get it out of your timeline. So you're going to get rid of the clinkers. Now, basically what you're going to have left after you get through all that stuff, 2 passes, now is when you're really starting to put your story together. And you'll end up on the video that I'm going to show you, which is based on, we shot a video for Yvonne. We ended up with basically 4 clips that really we thought told her story within that 1 minute period.
Is this a single person video we're talking about?
I think so.
No, that's an interview video.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, but you end up with the good takes.
Yeah.
And after you've gotten rid of all the trash.
So you're trying to tell your story. So you're left with whatever takes that you have. What are the best ones? But you'll notice that if you were just to play them, each one of those cuts, there'll be sort of a jump cut in between there. So what do you do with that? You need to be able to actually cover those edits with either a graphic, a picture, a video, some B-roll, whatever you can.
Or vary the size of the shot to do it, as we were talking before.
And then one more step. So once you've made your edit, you've covered those jump cuts, you'll put you want to fade up from black at the beginning. You want to fade down to black at the end. You want to put a title at the beginning. You want to put a lower third a lower third is just their person's title under their interview. And then finally, once you're all done, you want to edit that piece and then edit it, upload it to Vimeo. Everybody will need to have a free Vimeo account, which you'll be able to upload your footage, your finished piece up to Vimeo, and then you'll be able to send me a link to it, so I'll be able to show it and share it with everybody.
Okay, so that was the big picture of what you're about to see in this video that's a lot more detailed, and keep in mind that this video will be available for you to look at again if you need to, and I also have notes that I will send.
Yeah, I know it's going to be a lot. Take a deep breath. Here we go. Many times when you're making your simple single-person communication video, you'll need to trim a few seconds off of the beginning of your clip or fade to black at the ending. You'll find that using an editing app on your phone is the fastest way to clean up footage, add some B-roll or a photo or a graphic or two, and then get your video out into the world. Let's focus on the basics of editing on your phone. The first step is to navigate to the Filmic Pro app that we use to shoot your top-notch video. Within Filmic Pro, you access your footage by clicking on the play arrow at the bottom right. This brings up all of your video clips. Click on this checkbox selector, and you can now go through and click on the clips that you want to edit. The green bar indicates that it's selected. Check all that you want to include in your video. The next step is to click on this film roll icon, which will copy everything into a Filmic Pro folder. Now we click out of Filmic Pro and locate our editing app, KineMaster. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was the best app to use for editing on our phone, and KineMaster was by far the winner. It's a very powerful little app, and I find it far easier to use than most of the other smartphone editing programs. It's good for both iPhone and Android. We launch KineMaster, and that brings us to our opening screen. We want to start a brand new project, so we'll click on the plus sign Movie Slate right here in the middle. For this project, our aspect ratio is 16:9, and then we land on our main editing window.
We'll go much further into this program when we start cutting our own one-person communication video, but for now, let's just get all of our video resources into this program. When we click on the Media folder up here on the right, we can now choose to bring in either video or photos. We're bringing in footage, so keep the video selected. Now, a word of patience here. It may take a few seconds, sometimes many seconds, to populate the screen with all the stuff you shot on your phone. Be patient. And now we want to locate the Filmic Pro folder or album. And there it is. We'll select that, and now we see all of our clips. Now, if you're able to tape your single-person video all the way through in one take, that's what you're going to look for in KineMaster. And most of the time, it'll probably be the last take that you shot. You can only bring in one clip at a time, so I'm going to find Dia's main straight-to-camera clip. I happen to remember how long it was, 7 minutes and 43 seconds, which is not unusual for trying to record your 1 minute, one-person video. It takes time and patience. But here it is. I click on it, and it jumps down into our timeline. I hit the play button, and it'll start playing from the top of the clip. The second step is to simply go through your video and weed out all the bad takes. Distill it down to the very best of the best. I strongly suggest that your first pass through is just to cut the ins and the outs. We call them heads and tails of each take. We play until we see that she's about to start, and I pause, then tap on the timeline, which brings up this menu. I choose the scissors to split the clip, and I choose the middle selection, split at playhead. Now that's all I'm doing this first time through, heads and tails. You'll see that it's very easy to move the footage around by touching and moving the clip in the timeline. Now resist the impulse to make all of your edits perfect here at this stage. We just want to cut it into chunks for now.
Superman logos, team logos, or I don't know what else, so I better do that one over again. Let's see.
Another chunk. Now do this all the way through your footage. It's a good opportunity to see what you have.
I love the creating and the designing part. I find inspiration in beautiful.
Now the next pass through, you'll be getting rid of all the clinkers and start to piece it together. I just happened to remember that this first chunk had some problems and she started again, so I'm just going to get rid of it by clicking on the old trash can on the left there. I play my next clip and see that it's another clunker.
I don't know what else,
so
I better
to the
do
trash
that one
can.
over again.
Now this next one is a keeper. With a little practice, you'll be able to surgically remove a bad word or phrase and replace it with a few seconds from another take. Sometimes I notice that my cut is a little tight, so I tap on the timeline and use the little yellow handles to touch and extend or cut the head or tail of each clip. A take with those little yellow handles can also be shuffled anywhere you choose by tapping on it and holding it, and then move it to where you wish. Now this kind of editing only works if you know that you'll be able to cover the edit with some kind of footage, B-roll or a picture or a graphic. Otherwise it would appear as a jump cut. Work your way through your video and smooth out the edits as best you can. Remember, undo is your friend. This is called non-destructive editing because you may be tossing a clip into the trash can, but the original footage still exists safely on your phone. On the next pass, we bring in your titles, your B-roll footage, photos, and graphics. Now, whether you had one piece that works all the way through or you're editing in chunks, you'll want to add a fade up from black at the beginning of your video and fade to black at the end. To add black, you'll click on the gear icon, which is the project setting icon in the far left column. Select video and switch on the video fade in and fade out sliders. That'll give you a fade up from black at the beginning and a fade down to black at the end.
I love the creating and the...
I next add a title by clicking on the Layer tab on the big wheel. Then I select the big T for titles. I enter my text. And then I tap on the Accept check mark at the top right. I can resize and rotate and place the text wherever I want with those two controls. And when I have it where I want it, I want it to fade in and out by tapping on the In Animation tab and tell it that I want it to fade. It works the same for fading out.
I love the creating and the designing part. I find
just like any other footage, I can adjust the clips in or out by tapping and moving the yellow handles.
Love the creating and the designing
Now,
part.
knowing that I have some cuts coming up that I need to cover, or else I'll have a jump cut, I need to bring in a few photos to illustrate what she's talking about. I select the Layer tab on the big wheel, go to the top to the icon showing Picture over Footage. I want a photo this time, and I have to wait for many seconds while all of my pictures populate this window. I have a ton of pictures on this phone, and I think that's why it takes so long. I hope your experience will be a little more peppy. Search for the picture you want. It pops into our timeline window, just waiting for us to size and place it correctly. I want it to fill the frame. I also want it to fade in. It's the same process that we used for the opening title. Now, it's not visible here, but the clip of that window is actually below the other elements in the timeline. It'll show up in a second. There it is. Now, as you can see, it's covering the cut we made of Dia's presentation. If you look above there, there's a plus mark where we made the cut. The photo of the stained glass is now covering that as she continues to speak. Now, this is the basic process for piecing together your video. Use as much as you can of the original one-person presentation, and then when you make a cut, cover it with a graphic, a still, or video B-roll. When your video is all top-notch, our final step is to export it out of KineMaster. I'm choosing to compress it to FHD 1080p, which is basically HD. To share it with us and your fellow students, you'll need to upload it to our classroom streaming channel. Directions should be available in your information packet. If you have any questions, email me at ssealy@denverfilmdigital.com. Good luck.
Hi, I was getting some feedback that we had some stuttering on your pictures. I'm sorry if that was your case. Like we said earlier, these videos are available to you to download and to look at. And we also realized that that was a lot of information. I hope you're not thinking, oh man, I've got myself into something way over my head. Just know that this is like any software that you've ever learned in your life. At first, it becomes really overwhelming, but it's basically one or two basic principles. You touch this lights up. Everything you need to do is here. So please be patient, and once you get the software, play with it a little bit. Then look at this video again, and plus we are available to you anytime by email or phone. If you have any questions, say I just don't get this at all, please don't hesitate to give us a try.
Here's the thing: I took copious notes on the process that are also available, so you don't have to watch the video and keep going back and forth between the video. I think you should watch the video again, but you don't have to rely on it. It's in writing. Here's another thing, a couple things that people have mentioned from the last class that we didn't specifically say, and that is, okay, this is an editing thing. You're on your phone and you have the timeline down at the bottom. In typical iPhone or smartphone fashion, you can touch the screen and expand the timeline.
So every clip, in order so that everything's visible, when you first bring everything in, all the clips are visible. But if you say you want to get down to see what a second looks like, 30 frames, you're able to spread it apart, and you're able to really get down to be able to see exactly where you want to be.
Yeah.
I have one more thing that I just wanted to say, just to encourage you, that I honestly believe that these basic skills that we're talking about here can put you in good stead for the rest of your career. That being able to communicate and use these tools is something that you're going to use again and again and again. And it may not even be for work, but it may be home for personal use. But these are simple principles that seem complex, but over time you'll get to understand them and you'll get a hang of it.
Yeah, by the second or third time you do something, you add some text or you put in a fade in or a fade out, you'll say, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought it was. You know, at the beginning, you'll have to search for things. But with the combination of the notes and the viewing, I hope we're not overselling this, but if I can learn to do it, trust me, you can learn to do it. I used to be a radio person, pictures, schmictures, but now I've learned to do it too.
We're because of our size of the class, we've zoomed through our whole presentation. I just want to open it up and see if there are any questions right now.
Concerns.
Yeah, panics.
Yvonne, how much of the video froze?
There were points where you were talking through details and we were stuck on where you were bringing over a video. So I'd say for me, but I have slow internet, there were just a few places where it froze, and so I couldn't see where you'd go and grab the scissors or.
Okay.
But,
okay.
And I was going to say to the group that even if they have questions, I would be very interested in hearing what they're thinking for their projects. And that might be helpful too, to just get a sense, because some of it can be personal. I know when we first took this class, Marcy and I did a video where we were trying to explain what our new group did since we'd moved, and it was helpful. Again, I'm having my son do it for a project he's working on. He did it for a school project. So if there's something personal, even if it's not professional, that you guys want to do, on one of them, we had someone do the genealogy of the royal family. Like, there's been some fun projects.
Yeah, and if you want to do a personal one, just to kind of get practice at the beginning and impress your friends.
Wait, didn't we have one where there was a cat who fetched?
We did have.
That was fantastic video.
A lot of B-roll in that one.
Yeah.
Any questions out there?
From Chris or Dwayne or Crystal?
I'm sure I'll have more when I start doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris, do you have a sense of what you want to do for this project?
No, without checking in with Sarah and Leah first.
What if you have to do something personal? Do you have a sense of something like a craft or something that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, there's any number of things I could do. I could even make one on, we're building a well house up at our property right now.
Perfect. So I would just have that in your back pocket. If you can't do the other, at least you go through the process.
Yeah, I want everybody to try it, and I would encourage, if you can, you're going to do a lot of work on this anyway. If you can, make it about something that you want to say that you might use. You're going to put the effort into it. You're going to learn either way, so give it a shot.
Yeah. Dwayne and Crystal, I know you guys are in a weird kind of position, but do you have any thoughts on what you might do, as Yvonne was asking?
I think we will do like a personal video also.
Okay.
Great, we get to learn about you.
This is an intimate, small and intimate group, so
Yeah.
It's good to learn about each other.
Hey, Yvonne, I'm wondering, since you've gone through this, can you kind of talk a little bit about what that learning curve was like when you were first doing this and first, got your hands on the camera and started editing?
So, sure. I will tell you, Marcy and I are definitely learning. So when we first did our first video, we had a very hard time with the
Gimbal.
gimbal. Yeah, we had to actually call Steve and say, we don't know what's going on, because we had put it in the wrong side. But then when we got it in, actually using it wasn't so bad. So I feel like I shot really good B-roll the first time. I think I'd say the first interview, because there were two of us, one of us was able to be behind the camera, and I've had the advantage of actually working with Steve and Chris, and so I know that If I'm behind the camera and I lean a little, like Marcy could talk to me, so she wasn't talking to nothing. So that was really nice. I never did the editing. She always did the editing, but the actual shooting, you know, you'll make a lot of errors and you'll redo it, but it wasn't a big deal. It was kind of fun. I did one where I did stop motion because I'm more familiar with that, and so I was able to work that in, and that was nice for me. But it definitely took a while to like get the lighting right and to figure it out. I did a whole interview where I locked in the focus in the wrong place, and so we have really great information, but she looks blurry. But you know, we showed it. It's fun to see. You learn a lot, and you know, if the longer I go between, the harder it is for me. So I do better when I've done a project and I'm running into another project, having done this 3 or 4 times now. But I'd say the first one, it was a great lesson, and we were able to use stuff, and the shooting wasn't so bad, the script wasn't so bad. It was the equipment part that threw me off, getting the lighting right and getting the gimbal to work.
Good. Well, it's always a learning curve, and again, have patience with yourself. How much time do we have between the next?
We have 2 weeks until the next.
So you have 2 weeks. If you're like me, you're going to wait until the day before. But I would say give yourself a break and give yourself your blood pressure a break, and take a little time between now and then to think about it before and shoot it before the last day. You're going to have a chance to learn a little bit more. So again, the main thing we keep saying is have patience with yourself. One thing I was thinking about is that we all probably have experience making things in PowerPoint. You know, the being able to create a speech or something, you know, that same sort of pre-planning and thinking through things is exactly what we're talking about here. We're just using slightly different tools.
Yeah, moving pictures.
Yeah. So, you know, just give yourself a time and try to have fun with it. And again, if you have any questions, call us.
And so go ahead.
I would say that the time, and I know we've said this, and I'm just going to reiterate it, schedule more time than you need. So I think our first video ended up being a couple of minutes. We weren't so good at the 1 minute. But it probably took us well over an hour to shoot that. And so scheduling a little longer than you think you're going to need. So I could start with an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Just that was our experience.
Yeah.
Is it wasn't as smooth and as quick.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, if you could, I try to be a proponent of time blocking, and I try to schedule things. So if I were you guys, I would do that. I would schedule time to do it and just make yourself stick to it. And this is Wednesday. You know, write it over the weekend, shoot it next Tuesday. And then you'll have a week to edit the thing, and you won't hate yourself or us for that matter when it takes a little longer than you've anticipated to edit it.
And if you shoot it in a location where you know it's bad, given what we were just saying, you can just say, I know the location isn't great, but here's the things I focused on. Because I think we had somewhere I knew that we were violating some of what you taught us, but I got the other pieces and I got the experience.
Yeah. Okay. And because we're a little smaller, we have zoomed through faster and have had fewer questions. I want to make sure you ask them if you have them, but if not, there's no reason for us to fill the next 40 minutes when you could probably use that 40 minutes to do something fabulous. So,
like write a script.
Yeah, exactly. So unless there are objections, we can call it a day. Any objections, speak now. Huh. Okay, great. We've all got 40 minutes.
Okay, thank you all. Have fun with this.
Write us if you need to.
Yes.
And we'll get this up on YouTube soon.
Oh, Chris, are you saying something?
I said thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, you're more than welcome. All right, see y'all soon.